Pastor Steve, Pastor Ed, thanks for joining us today to talk about the conference. I really hope that this will be a kind of invitation to our listeners, YouTube subscribers, and the people who follow us on our app to come to the conference. So to start off with, I wanted to talk about the theme this year, which is when Jesus returns, what will he find? And I know, Pastor Ed, you're the one who kind of put that theme out there, so why don't we start with you talking about that?
Sure, Patrick. I guess, we start, months over the summer, really, kind of praying, seeking the Lord, asking for a theme. And I just could not escape Luke 18, verse 8, where it says, "Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on the earth?" Mm-hmm. And, of course, for the conference, we shortened it a little bit. When Jesus returns, what will he find? Because that passage, it's talking about faith, and specifically faith to keep praying, if you read it in its context. But when Jesus comes, he'll be looking for faith getting expressed in all sorts of different ways, I think. And that's really what was kind of, guiding me or made it appealing to me, is thinking about how much closer we are, and ever, each year getting ever closer to that day when Jesus truly does come back. And it seems just as relevant as ever to ask that question, what is he going to find? And maybe for us, it's a little bit of, what is he even looking for? Have we kept that in sight?
Okay. How about you, Pastor Steve?
Yeah, when you look at the larger context of that passage, it actually starts in chapter 17, and it's really talking about the end times. That's what Jesus is referring to. And anytime Jesus starts talking about the last days, he is always, in his mind, is telling the people of that time, which I believe is us today, to be ready, to be spiritually prepared for my return. And that is what that question reflects. What am I going to find when I return? And will I find faith in all the sorts of things, as Pastor Ed alluded to, all the sorts of things that one would expect of a person who really does believe in Jesus Christ. So that's the kind of tact we're going to take with the conference this year. And also, I should mention, my voice is a little off because I've been sick the last week, but I'll be ready to go in April.
Well, we'll look forward to that for sure.
Yeah.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about were, to put it this way, the kinds of people that might come to the conference and how they would benefit. I see sincere believers, people who will have faith maybe when Jesus returns, but also maybe people who have a shallow Christianity or just aren't really wholehearted for the Lord. There's probably people who are in need in sexual sin, or wives of men in sexual sin, and graduates of our program I know come a lot. So what would those different kind of groups of people get out of our conference in relation to that theme?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Patrick, because I don't go back all the way to the beginning of these conferences like Pastor Steve can, but my involvement actually began in the early 2000s when the conference was actually specifically billed as an alumni conference. It was specifically for the graduates, and after a year or two of that, I think the ministry opened it up to everyone, because it was just seemed obvious, like, this is a conference for everyone. It's not just for graduates, although obviously graduates still come in fairly large numbers, and it's a great opportunity to reconnect with fellow graduates. It's a great opportunity just, as a graduate, when I came back, I really appreciated the extra spiritual shot in the arm kind of feeling that I got from coming, and it was just what I needed to, I felt like I had started to drift away, but the Lord used the conference to really get me back solidly on track, and I don't think I've deviated from that since, really. And so graduates would definitely benefit. I think of couples coming and how often we hear their testimonies afterward of what a time they had seeking the Lord together and really being together for a whole weekend just at an intense spiritual level. It really does something to put a different foundation under your relationship and a different focus on your relationship. So couples have really been blessed, and I'm sure anyone who comes, there's something there for them, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say is really for anybody who has a sincere desire to spend time in the presence of God. You just can hardly find locations and situations anymore where you can really come and sit in the presence of God like happens at this conference.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing about it. So whether it's a guy who's still struggling with sexual sin, maybe coming just to check us out and see what we're all about, we welcome that because we know what they're going to run into. They're going to run into God in that conference. And that's the most important thing that could happen for anybody who comes to us looking for help. Is not an encounter with Steve Gallagher or Ed Book or any other man, but an encounter with the Lord, because he's the one who can set people free.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, anytime you get in God's presence, good things happen. And that's what we see down through the past 20-plus years that we've had this conference is men's and women's couples, their lives, their marriages get restored. Yeah, good things happen. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
Pastor Steve, talking about the presence of the Lord just brings me back to that Bible study we were doing as a staff a few months back, talking about how just our fellowship with God really pours out into our fellowship with other believers. And that's what my next question was about the conference, is it can feel like such a family reunion. And for me, that is like what you were saying, the guys that I went through the program with, but I see it happen with people who have had no association with Pure Life before. So can you talk about that kind of the joy of the community experience at the conference?
Yeah, I think it does come through, even for people who that's their first exposure to us. There's just an atmosphere. And that atmosphere really begins, I want to say, even take it all the way back to the senior leadership. What we have with God and in God and what we share together, the six of us, we meet once a week and we pray together, we talk everything through, make decisions corporately, not just me saying this is how it's going to be. We talk things through. And out of that depth of fellowship and that transparency we have with each other, that extends to the staff. And from there, it extends to the students and the programs. And people really under the realm of influence of Pure Life Ministries get a sense of that sincerity and that earnestness, that reality that we live in at Pure Life Ministries. And so those who come to the conference, they kind of enter into that atmosphere. And you can't necessarily put a finger on it and say what exactly it is that feels so good and feels so right in that atmosphere, but that is a big part of it, is that deep fellowship, that bond of fellowship that's developed when people get together in God's presence, whether it's in a residential program or at the conference.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Pastor Steve. Like I'm thinking, at Pure Life, we really strive to give Jesus the center position in everything we do. And when that's the case, to the degree that we're successful, people come together in these conferences or in any other ministry setting, really, and Jesus is high, he's lifted up, his word is, emphasized as truth, and there's a unity that just surrounds all of that draws us more and more to Jesus.
Yeah.
Would you say, too, there's an element that because people are coming with a need, couples seeking restoration, men coming who need freedom from addiction, kind of what some of our guests talk about when they see the men in our programs worship, there's just an honesty before the Lord. Do you think that has an impact with how people come together, that those walls are down in some way?
Yeah, and it makes people feel like they can be transparent because, man, when the leaders do it and the other staff do it, you don't get that religious feeling like there's an image that has to be maintained, and you put out this image of whatever godliness or something, and you hide behind that. And who knows what goes on in your life, in the unseen. But it's not like that at Pure Life. We know what wretches we were. All of us came out of a wretched past. We understand that, and we don't try to be anything other than what we have been in the past, except for how God has changed us. He gets the glory, not ourselves. So, yeah, I think it creates trust in people.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of talked about some of the things that really stand out about our conference, but what would each of you say, what makes our conference unique or special or different from maybe the 15 other conference opportunities that are out there?
To be honest with you, I'm so out of touch with what's going on out there, but from a distance, the way it seems is there's a lot of worship that's built on emotion rather than a true atmosphere of the presence of God. And a lot of the teachings are more of a practical manner rather than a call to enter into a life of deep fellowship with the Lord, and not to put down others. I don't mean it like that, because I know there's good conferences out there that address pertinent issues. I would just say that some of them feel a lot more like a seminar, an educational seminar about things, and where ours is truly a spiritual conference. That's one thing that I would say would mark us as different.
Yeah, I would say, again, like Pastor Steve said, I'm kind of out of touch with what others are actually doing out there, perhaps. But it seems to me, I would say that our conferences is not, the focus isn't motivational. The focus is on Jesus. And when you're drawn into a closer walk and presence, you've spent a weekend in the presence of the Lord like that, the outcome of that may be that I'm motivated to do some things in my life that need to happen. But that's not been the direct goal or emphasis. The idea was to bring people into the presence of the Lord and have an encounter with Him while they're here. And I guess the other thing that I'll just take time to mention is I'm aware, each year there are a number of people who come, probably even maybe as many as a third of the people who come are kind of interested in checking out Pure Life Ministries. They've heard of our residential program. They've heard of our at-home programs for counseling in the area of sexual sin, and they're kind of curious, what are these people all about? Can I trust them with my sin problem? And are they a true source of help? And the conference does, I think, give people a chance to help get that question answered. We do even offer tours of the residential campus, so people can get a very firsthand, up-close look at us, talk to some of the staff. There's people at the registration table that can fill in the gaps of, information about the ministry, that sort of thing. So there really is a great opportunity, though, to encounter Jesus, and that's the thing that I would emphasize.
Yes. Amen.
To end, I'd like if you guys could talk about some of the different elements of the schedule. So we have a pre-conference this year, and then besides our main sessions, we also have breakout times with different optional sections, and I think those offer a lot of variety and some really special opportunities for people. So could you touch on some of the highlights of those?
Yeah, I'll touch on the pre-conference, and Pastor Ed can touch on the other elements. It comes out of the call to purities that we started doing in the year 2000. I would go out practically every other weekend. I was in a different city of the country, just month in, month out, going out and giving these conferences to men's groups primarily, and also to pastors' groups and stuff. But it was all about calling men into a life of purity and dealing directly with issues like lust and how to overcome it, and very practical biblical answers that really helped men. And eventually, Jeff Colon started going out and doing those. He did them for years, and so he and Rose are going to be the ones to handle the pre-conference this year again.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of experience in this. They've dealt with it in their own lives, and it's really, they know what they're talking about. So it'll be a real blessing for men who have struggled in the past.
So if they have a need, if they're one of those people who doesn't know a lot about us or is following us, but they are in sexual sin in some capacity, they definitely need to come to the pre-conference.
I would say so. You know, that's going to be directly addressing sexual sin issues, whereas the rest of the conference is more of a call to Jesus Christ and into a spiritual atmosphere. So there's a little bit of a difference, different emphasis on the two.
Okay. Got it.
And if I could just add there, because I want to make it clear that it's for men and women at the pre-conference. We will talk about sexual sin, but if a guy is married, he should bring his wife. Rose will be talking to the wives about their role in helping their husband overcome his sexual sin, all of that sort of thing. And the emphasis is really on developing a pure heart. So I just wanted to add that. And, you know, we were talking about some of the other elements that people will find when they come to the conference. And I'm really personally kind of excited because we changed the way we do intercessory prayer for this year because it's just been getting so large, which is a wonderful problem to have, you know, but and it's one of the highlights, at least for the staff, I think, and I think from the feedback we hear for many people, the staff is willing to have people come and pray with them, and whatever need they have, the staff just undertakes in prayer for a few minutes for them individually at the conference, and it's kind of challenging to do that with hundreds of people. So this year we'll split that up into a couple different afternoon opportunities, so not everyone has to come at once, and we'll be able to hopefully pray for anyone who wants prayer during those two sessions. And then also one of the new things that we have for this year is a Friday evening worship session. People have commented every year how wonderful the worship is, how anointed, how spirit-filled the atmosphere is when we're engaged in just worshiping before the main session. So, and there's never enough time for it, it seems. So this year we devoted an evening session to just having an actual worship time for everyone. And we also have, of course, the traditional breakout sessions, men and women, and some round tables. And I think we're still even ironing out some of the topics for all of that, but it will happen.
Yeah, and a lot of our counselors, I think, end up on those round tables and breakouts, or
exactly.
Graduates. So it just gives testimony to kind of the messages that they're hearing, I think, too.
Yes. Yeah, they do a really good job, I think, of making it very practical and applicable so you know what to do if your life has been off track or you just need to go deeper. You've gotten some real encouragement and direction of how to do that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good conference. I hope everyone listening comes and we just pack out the ark and they don't know what to do with all these people.
That'd be great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in. And for those listening, if you haven't heard already, we look forward to seeing you there. So thank you.
April 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah, and the pre-conference is on the 21st.
Right.
That's right. Thursday the 21st for the pre-conference.
Amen. All right. Well, God bless you guys.
Thanks, Patrick.
Hey, all. Thanks for watching. We have already said this a lot, but we really want to see you at our conference April 22nd and 23rd at the Ark Encounter in Williamstown, Kentucky, and early bird pricing is ending March 13th, so now's the time to register. You can get all the information that you need about our conference at conference.purelifeministries.org. Please join us. See you later.